Aye.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Item.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
So, that, move on to the next item. And the first item, new business announcement. Um, Ms. Hernandez is absent and being hours ago email that she and all of that. Is it'll be the same exact approach as the original, whatever that process was. Stick to that. Okay. Um, Next item. So this item is on the agenda because there was a scheduling conflict. We had voted to every Wednesday in the council chambers. Unfortunately, when I went to book the room, I was told that the first Wednesday of every month already needs donors. So options that we have right now are to either do remaining Wednesdays of the month, so like first Wednesday, 3 times a month, or we do a different day, we'll be meeting, and any other available day. So with that,
Mr. Chairman. I would
like to take the yeah, yeah, take why would be so sticking?
Up for discussion, Mr. Chairman. I have kind of a conflict on Wednesday. That's the reason why my previous motion, the last meeting, when its motion failed that 2 days a week was, Tuesdays and Thursday. So I have a conflict. Hopefully, there's a way we could switch the Wednesday, fine, if not, I just gotta figure out a way to get it.
I would make the. So the only alternative day is Monday. So, that is, days.
I do as well.
I have a couple of conflicts Mondays also. Mr. Chairman, would it help Mr. Faria if we did every other Wednesday? So if we did 2 Wednesdays a month, so it would free him up 2 Wednesdays? I don't know if that would help him any. And until we got to the point where we needed to meet more frequently.
If I understand, Mr. Chairman, we cannot utilize, we cannot have any meetings on the first Wednesday of the month, right? Therefore, they see that we're gonna go, and correct me if I'm wrong, 3 meetings monthly, or we would have to switch a day, correct? To have a meeting weekly, am I correct? So if I listen loud and clear, we have a problem on Mondays, am I correct? Is Thursday a problem? Yeah. When does the city council?
Fridays.
Through the chair. I would make a motion for the 3 Wednesdays. Decide that we need.
Rogers, second by Carroll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. And just for clarification, for the minutes, that would be starting May, our next meeting would be May 10th at 6:30. So,
If I'm-
this is on here. When you were last packet from and then that proposed amendment, article 37, the section charter that charter commitment that we are formed are the problem that had logistically was a lot of people were finding it difficult, including us, about how long our terms were, how long we were even ready. Turned out on investigation that this amendment, while passed and it became law, part of Carter was not actually uploaded publicly. So copies of the charter that are publicly available pass. It has been book page, so knowledge is part of the charter. Just public accessible. So the vote is just to call on creation of the records, but current charter, which is also in compliance with and before I do that, I did have a question for the solicitor. This, by the clerk. The in the resolution that was passed, it states that the section that the Charter Commission is placed in is under basic provision. And the part that had been put in page article towards the end. Is that something that
Yes, so a couple of quick notes. One, the era in which the resolution was passed, there are a lot of recording errors from that time period. Without getting into the reasons for all that, we do still come across them from time to time. We have been working to correct all of them. Additionally, I will say that upon receiving the agenda, I did reach out to the clerk, and the clerk is, to my knowledge, already in the process of getting all of this uploaded and recorded correctly. So the vote is still welcome, but the administration is on it. The second we noticed it was an issue, we started to move it forward. The difference in the sections, you can actually see in the original recording of the resolution that there was an edited version that seems to have been stamped. I can check which section it is, but I actually believe it's towards the end of the charters where this provision ended up. But it's not an issue on our end. It's just an organizational thing. We'll just double check the record, make sure it goes in the section as was voted on by the people. That's what's actually going to control what was actually on the ballot.
So that being the case, I'll open the floor to discussion on whether it's even necessary to vote on this.
What I heard the solicitor say is that it's not necessary, they're working on it, but there would be no harm. Is that correct, Dylan? If that's the case, I would make a motion to update the charter amendment.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Rogers, second by Ms. Silva. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item. So this item is just a formal, these are two formal letters, one to the administration and one to the city council. The language is slightly different. That's just asking to each of them from us, the commission, to present proposals to us to consider. Specifically, more so for the administration because they have the ability, because they have access to department heads, to gather this information, things that they identify on a day-to-day basis. They can put together in a sort of work package, for lack of a better word, and present it to us, and we can take that up at our leisure. And that's not to say that we'd have to accept proposed changes that they make, but we can consider them. I would suggest that we do consider them. And because the commission was formed in part to solve the day-to-day issues that arose from the current charter when it was passed So input from the administration and council is always welcome. The letter to the council, it would go a little bit differently just because the council, one is a elected body that meets twice a month. So that would either be at their discretion if they wanted to vote to send a proposal to us, which they could, but more likely it would be if a council member wanted us to discuss an issue, it could be, they could formally suggest it to either myself or to someone else, and we could have that placed on the agenda, and it would say whatever the particular subject matter was, and it would say requested by Councilman X. So that's all these letters are. The letter to the administration has a deadline on it, and that is simply a deadline so that we can, because we know the recommendations from the administration are going to be more extensive because they will be getting into the weeds probably in terms of things they've stated publicly that they'd like to address in previous with the previous city council and meetings with the charter commission was being discussed, which is the budget, changing the budget timeline or capital budget. These are things that are very detailed, require a lot of research, and if we are discussing them, are going to require a lot of time. And that being the case, I put in a letter that I wanted that to be presented to us sooner rather than later. So I placed a date on there for our next meeting, which is 2 weeks' time. Council date, I didn't put a hard date because that would be something that I would expect the council members to just add there when it's convenient for them to bring up a topic. Now, in terms of how we as a charter commission are going to go about reviewing sections of the charter, this wouldn't by any means form the agenda. I don't want members to think that you would only be looking at the administration's proposals and then you vote on it and go home. This is just a way to make sure that the administration and the council are being heard by the commission and that we also can give our input before these things are taken. We have 5 of us are elected, but there are also council and mayoral appointees on here. So that was the impetus behind that. And just on another related note before I do open this up for discussion, going forward with the agenda, if anyone does have a topic they want to put on the agenda, just let me know. As the solicitor said in the previous meeting, this needs to be 48 business hours or that would usually be Monday. Just let me know what it is. It will be on the agenda, and I will make sure that it's noted, whoever it is. I will put your name next to the item. That way, when it comes up, you will have the floor to discuss it. So, saying that, I now open the floor to discussion on the 2 letters we're presenting.
Mr. Chairman,
I've reviewed both letters. And basically, push them to the governing body. My question to you is, after further discussion, will we be entertaining a single motion for both letters or individual? I believe we could just do one motion for both. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I heard you loud and clear. I'd like to make a motion. I think it's a great idea, advising the administration and the city council, to come up with their recommendations to the Charter Commission. I think we all know the reason why the Charter Commission was formed. And this was probably, I don't know, going back 3.5 years ago. It was a disagreement with the administration and a member of the council who's no longer here. And the reason why is he didn't go through the protocol, going through the mayor's office to have the department heads showing up. I remember loud and clear, I was in Florida when I watched the meeting. As a matter of fact, it was pretty disturbing that day that the mayor came here, talked to the council, agreed with all the language that they wanted. Mark, and that's one of the reasons why I nominated Mark as chairman of the committee, not because he's smarter than everybody else, because every one of you is here qualified to be chairman. It's because the knowledge and the experience, what he went through at the time. And when the mayor left, his message to the council was any language that you want, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, and Mark is here, he'll work with the council in any language that you need for the purpose of the protocol, which is on a charter. You had to go to the city manager. Now you had to go through the mayor's office. And following that, a motion was made to change the charter, that department heads could come directly and the invitation of the council. And then, of course, that went to the upstairs to the canvassing, and then, of course, they voted after just to pull it. But that's pretty much what happened. So I think just listening to the meetings. Therefore, I think it's a good idea. I think the administration has recommendations and the council. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we should bundle up the letters to the council and the letter to the administration.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Mr. Faria, seconded by Mr. Sulo. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Discussion of city clerk.
So, this is the first issue that is really going to be discussed by this body. Now, the previous Charter Commission went through the charter chronologically, and that's something that we could do. We could wait for the administration and the council to come back with their proposals, in which case we would be more of a passive body. However, after last week's meeting and just speaking with the administration and with members of the council and members of the public when I was running for this seat, one issue that came up time and time again was the issue of the city clerk, both in regards to the past problems that we've had. I won't go into detail on that. And also just the inconsistency of the language. Now, I will say from my personal point of view, I believe that the language reads inconsistently with the rest of the charter. And I believe that comes from the fact that the previous Charter Commission voted on the city clerk position being a mayoral appointment subject to council confirmation. And I believe that was the only change that the Charter Commission passed that the city council chose not to go forward with. They had it remain as a city council appointment. And with that happening, regardless of how members of the commission feel, and we will discuss this, the charter and the government had problems that arose between separation of powers because that the occupant, who was the city clerk, had issues where you had someone who was appointed by the legislative body overseeing an administrative department. Now, you also have provisions in the charter where there are clearly defined lines about separation of powers, including what I would refer to as a non-interference clause, where the council cannot directly interfere, order, intervene with the day-to-day operations of the city. The problem that arose was whether the city clerk, as an appointee of the council, was able to act as an agent of the city council and therefore as a way to circumvent that part of the charter and the intent behind that part of the charter. So, and with that arose a conflict with implications that I don't think that we need to go into the specifics behind. So, that being said, I will open the floor to discussion. I just want to use this as also an opportunity for us to take into consideration that proposals that we make and the way, and this is a suggestion for the city council as well, proposals that we make are serious, and it's not just each item. So if we want to talk about the city clerk, we want to change clerk's language, that's perfectly fine. But we need to take that by changing that, we are changing the way that other sections of the charter will read and flow. And luckily, we have our solicitor with us who can tell us how the potential fallout of that might be impacted for the city. But that's just something to bear in mind. So the way that we have it right now, again, is the city clerk is appointed by the council and is overseeing an administrative, is overseeing employees of the administration. It is not actually a department. There has been no establishment of clerks. So what we have the options of doing that as it is, doing what the previous charter commission did of making it a mayoral appointment through council confirmation. Would be making it a Department of Records, where you treat it as another department of the city, W, finance, and the city clerk would be a department head, mayor, and also entertain if we did something like that, where the executive is appointing a city clerk, that the council would have a clerk that would take minutes, in which case you're talking about splitting the position. When we talk about these things, and I specifically put this as a discussion item and item to vote on, you just need to think about the details and how this is going to be impacted. So, and the city clerk specifically, there are certain functions, and I will refer that the city clerk has specific powers by state law that are not severable from that position. So if, for example, if we decided this was going to be a straight mayoral appointment, the city clerk, I believe, still has by law still has duties with the council.
Yes, that's correct. So in practice, we're talking about three sorts of jobs. One is city clerk underneath state statute, has a bunch of official work they have to do. One is really the clerk of the council. And then the other is the department head of the Department of Records, as you just put it. So right now, those three functions exist within one job. And to your point, it's odd that it's a legislative appointment that handles administrative functions. It is additionally difficult because you don't have control over all of it. You are still subject to state law. No matter what we do, the clerk has certain responsibilities. They're almost exclusively related to record keeping. So I hope that answers kind of the question, the lay of the land.
Mr. Chairman? I have a question, and I might need some clarification because I was reading the charter and I read two separate parts where the one part where, like you said, it spoke of the city clerk's position and how it was going to be a city council versus mayoral appointment. And then there's another part where it says all department heads are subject to the mayor's appointment. So there's like two separate, I think that's what you were referring to, that there's two separate parts. My question is, can we discuss looking at it in a completely different way? I never understood why the city clerk was a position that was an at-will position. I never understood why you would have that such an important position, a person who has to handle so many documents and to be changing with your city council. I don't understand that because that's should be the one safe zone. Your clerk should know everything that's going on. And when your council changes, they should be able to go and speak to their clerk. So my question to this commission is, why can't we look at, there's a deputy clerk, there's other clerks in that department. Why can't there be a clerk that is made the council clerk, the city clerk? That clerk be the person who's in charge of this and does not change, is not an at-will employee that will be changing appointment. It'll be the consistency. So when a new council comes in, if the people so desire to change all their council, the clerk knows what's going on and can advise the council. My thing is, we should have a department head. There should be a department head that oversees the department, that oversees anything that doesn't fall under state law for the clerk, that also has to weigh in on employee recommendations, make recommendations for different, committees and different things. That person should be, like it says in the charter, the director of the council, or the director of the city clerk, or the director of records, or whatever you want to name it. That should be the appointment that the mayor is doing. And then we would have consistency. We would have the job there. Administration is answering for administration. Legislation is still moving the way it's supposed to be moving. The clerk still can speak to, and it can be right in the charter that the clerk has every right to speak to the council, that should be like right there because state law supersedes most of that anyway. So you would follow it. I'd like to discuss that because I don't understand this. I never understood it. And I guess now that I'm reading it, I'm really not understanding how we can allow such important documentation, important information be left at an at-will position. I don't think it's fair. And I don't think it's fair to the consistency, the caliber of people that you're getting, because you're getting someone, you're telling them that they need to be dedicated to their position. But you're also telling them that in 4 years, if the council so desires, or even before that, they can get rid of you. The continuity isn't, and morale, it all gets affected. So in the long term, for the city of East Providence, I think we would be better off if we actually entertained something different. Because obviously, with the change of government, this way isn't working. And the previous council that thought that they could change a few words to make it work, it didn't work. So that's just my,
I guess this question is for legal. Are you saying, Dylan, that we cannot, can we create a position, offered to the city council, put on the ballot, a separate position, whatever you want to call it, that just answers to the city council? They appoint it, it lasts for as long as the council lasts, new council comes in, they can appoint it. We know how this happens. I don't need to go into it. We know what the problem was. And my good friend Valerie Perry can attest to this. The council needs their own person that responds to what they need them to do as far as council meeting, chairing the council meeting, sort of. But in order to have checks and right checks and balances, I feel that the executive, the mayor, should appoint the city clerk. But that could not, that city clerk could not have to, or could not be the person who's responsible. And that appointment should definitely, whatever that title be, definitely be the city council's appointment, so that they have a person who they actually, can use in the way they use. And that, of course, is the legislative branches. It makes the right separation of powers, in my opinion. And I think once the mayor appoints the city clerk, that city clerk is a department head and should have all the rights and all the responsibility to answer to the mayor, because it's a very important position in the city. I think in ways it's the most important, with municipal court being there, with all the records being there. So my question is to you, and you're shaking your head yes, but maybe if you could say it on the record, we can create, in your opinion, this charter can offer to the city council a separate position that would be only answerable to the council.
Absolutely. And we can specifically create the position, how the appointment procedure works, how removal procedure works, how they should be responding. So that is sort of the clerk of the council, just to keep referring to it, just to give it some title.
Sure.
And then the state statute city clerk authority can remain with the department head of the Department of Records, just to kind of use the loose terms. These aren't terms that currently exist, but I think structurally that makes sense. The one facet I will add to the conversation is one of the other challenges that we have had in the change of government, and even prior to the change of government to a degree, is council communications with department heads. I believe right now in the charter, it's a misdemeanor. So, but functionally, the council does need to be able to have conversations with department heads to take care of constituent services, those sorts of things. But that is a responsibility that could, in theory, be rolled into the clerk of the council position, so that there is like a practiced funnel. There's someone here 9 to 5 or whatever, however the council may wish to fund it, that can have those sorts of conversations with the day-to-day administration. And maybe that's one more fit that addresses some of the issues that I know that I've experienced, and I think some of the other members of this commission have experienced as well, trying to sort out the change in government.
Mr. Chairman, if I just might continue on one final thing on this portion of it for me. I'm sure we're not going to decide all this thing, because it's quite a bit of discussion, but I do want to say that I think we should wait, because I'm sure the council and the mayor want to weigh in on this issue. It's very important to both of them how it goes. So I would request that we wait for those letters to come back to see if they have commented on the position or positions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. I put this on the agenda, like I said, just because this seems to be the one issue that there's a consensus that needs to be addressed. I will say, to the point that the solicitor was making, that we could put language in there about a clerk of the council. We don't technically need to, just playing devil's advocate here. We could put enabling language that says something like the city council may retain a clerk of the council. But technically, right now, there's nothing preventing them from doing that. They could just budget for one, correct?
Yes, my only hesitancy is there are a list of duties underneath city clerk in the charter currently. I do not know off the top of my head if within those lists of duties is something that's responsive to the council. But to your point, there's nothing preventing them from creating that position right now.
So my follow-up, I guess, to that is the what the trend that I have seen in the past few years, maybe longer, is that when a council tends to come in, especially when it's new members who aren't experienced, they will go to a city clerk and ask them for needs, particularly things like, you know, research on, you know, items that they want to bring up during a meeting, not just things that are outlined in the charter. And in the language in the charter, we know specifically the city clerk has specific duties, being, you know, keeping the records of the city, and, you know, attending the council meetings, taking the minutes of the meetings. But, you know, and one of the references that, you know, would be made previously, you know, was that we had a clerk of the streamers. You know, it was time to decorate City Hall. It was the city clerk's job. The to me, one of the reasons that this needs to be addressed is because, whether intentional or not, there was, purely by appointing authority, there was an abuse of power over the office of city clerk, and that it became essentially a council staff position. And when you have that leverage, that is just, it's essentially, it becomes you work at the pleasure of the council. But the city clerk's duties are outlined right here in the charter. It's, I would argue it's limited exactly by what's here in the charter, and even says, the last portion of it is section H. I think it's section H, underneath section 212, which is that any other duties that aren't in the charter have to be passed by ordinance from the council. So if the way that I interpreted it as is, if the city council wants the city clerk to hang up their streamers for their party, they have to pass an ordinance. And to my knowledge, there is no such ordinance. In fact, I don't believe there is an ordinance giving the city clerk any additional duties that aren't in the charter. So that I am 100% behind the idea of making it a mayoral appointment, and giving the council a clerk. The question I have is making sure that we put the right language, and I would suggest it would be something enabling, like the city council may retain its clerk of the council. So that way, where it's not forcing them to do that and binding those duties, because when we say there shall be a clerk of the council, you then would have to outline duties. Like, if you look at the section, if we said the first section of the city clerk's duties are essentially the city council portion of the city clerk's duties, keeping a journal of the minutes in the proceedings. If we just said that section is going to be the clerk of the council's job.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can interrupt me on this one.
Okay,
Feel
thank
free.
you. After serving for 14 years, I'm familiar with a lot of these clerk's rules, but as far as keeping the journals and taking the minutes, that's governed by state law. The city clerk As a matter of fact, I've done a lot of research in the last few weeks just to make sure. And I've checked with different cities and towns, and whether it's a mayor appointment or a council appointment, the city clerk is the one that always does the minutes at the meeting. That is the job of the city clerk, to keep the council minutes. Now, I do agree with the conversations that we've had, that being a mayor form of government, it should be an administrative position under the mayor, because it is a department head. And it's like the clerk is serving two masters, you know, the council, and that really needs to be separated. Now, if they had their own clerk, they could go to the clerk, give their audience from the docket, and then the clerk would forward that to the city clerk and for the docketed item. So they would have their own, and that way the council wouldn't have to be running into the clerk's office every day, because, you know, that's what the problem is now with the form of government we have.
Tim, I agree with Julie, Bruce, and obviously Del Perry. Changes are hard to accept at times, but we all had the experience of what happened not long ago, the way the city clerks were functioning. We no longer have Val Perry or Jim Billy back 40 years ago, that there was a lot of communication. And it's pretty scary going forward. So I certainly would support that should be a mayor's appointment for the city clerk, because of the responsibilities, you know, the records, the job duties, that job description that person had. That should be mayor's appointment. And the council should have the right, and I think it's pretty clear, to appoint their own clerk. Because I don't think, I don't see how that the council would do without a clerk. But anyway, I'm not so sure that it justifies appointing a clerk full-time. You may create a position on a part-time basis only to provide the service for the council. And I think, Val, correct me if I'm wrong, I think duties and the clerk, when it pertains to the council, is post meetings, attend the meetings here. Am I correct? What else is the job duty aside from, you know, the department head? Because I'm talking about having a department head, mayor, clerk appointed by the mayor. But aside from that, what else does the clerk do?
Well, the clerk is responsible for all the records of the council, for the, you know, keeping all the resolutions and the ordinances and all up to date. Now, a clerk in that office could do the actual typing and whatnot, but forward them to the clerk to be organized.
What I'm saying now, the way the system is, you appoint the city clerk, she's like a department head and provides all the service to the council. Going forward, does it justify the clerk? We're going to have, and I agree 100%, 150%, by the way, that it should be a mayor's appointment for the clerk, because again, that's a department head. Does it justify the council having your clerk full-time? Do you really need, because now you're going to have someone in that department who's going to be a department head. Does it justify full-time, or the council? Well, not the council has the right to hire someone, but on a part-time basis. Am I correct? Part-time will do whatever's necessary for the council.
It probably
And that's
could
just
be
a
done
discussion, by the way.
part-time. Well, it all depends on, I mean, if the council wanted to come into the, you know, to see the clerk and their own clerk, they would have to adjust their time to go into the clerk if it was only a part-time.
Because we have functioned without a city clerk, you all know for how long. I think the city, and we're not here to, you know, there's no need. I'm not here to save money, not hiring a clerk, no. It's just to change the appointment by the mayor versus the council. And the council shall appoint someone, obviously, to provide the services for the council. Exactly what Val was saying. I just don't know if it's necessary to, that position should be full-time. Whatever, they got to work it out. Because for the last, was it 2.5 years? Yeah, I'd say a couple of years now. What you had the deputy clerk, who, by the way, is doing a good job, who's doing it all. Who comes here to the meetings, who provides the service to the council, and acts as the department head. So that's what you have now. Is it working? The answer is yes. But we need to move in a different direction now. Would I like to see the way it is? The answer is yes. But I think what makes sense is that I would support that 150% is mayor's appointment. The mayor should appoint the city clerk as a department head. And we all know the reasons why the last time didn't work with the mayor, didn't work with the administration. And the council, obviously, if they need to hire a clerk because to meet the state laws, I think they should.
Through the chair. Just for the solicitor, I think I read somewhere in this charter that one person can hold two positions? Or is that semantics?
I believe so.
Okay, so to refer to what Mr. Farrier said, to make it lucrative or to make it so that council can appoint somebody who wouldn't just say, "Oh, I'm going to do this for 5 hours a week, and then a new council come in, I'll be gone anyway. I have other things to do." Can we write it, or can we suggest to the council again that it be put on the ballot where that person, in the cases of helping with municipal court or helping with records or helping with something in the city court, answers to the city clerk on those occasions as a part-time job there and then part-time for the city council? Can that be written that way?
It can be written that way. What immediately comes to mind for me is actually employment law questions on how removal would function and which party is, can give someone a recommendation for improvement in performance. If they fail to improve, maybe they're doing a good job for one set of duties, not a good job for another set of duties. I do think at any sort of division, if they're going to have more than one hat on, we should be incredibly clear who has discharge, discipline, and management authority.
Okay. And my last question to you, again, Mr. Chair, if I might. Is there any pending litigation by any former city clerk against the city of East Providence now? And why I'm asking that is, do we need to be careful on anything we discuss regarding the city clerk's office?
No, not to my knowledge.
There's no pending litigation?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, I think I agree with most of the discussion that's been ongoing here at the meeting. However, I do feel that just the nature of the office itself it's a hybrid office. That individual, as Mrs. Perry said, answers to two different bodies. From day-to-day work in City Hall, it's a managerial executive branch job. But during city council time, preparing the agendas, attending the meetings, now it's a legislative branch responsibility. I am in support of it being a department head and appointed and under the direction of the mayor. But like any other big changes, the devil's going to be in the details. And I think we're going to have to be very, very careful that we delineate the responsibilities. I think the creation of a secretary or a clerk for the council is a valid option to explore. I think we should look for input from the council, how they feel about that. Do they want to take on that responsibility? So I think it's going to be incumbent on all of us to do a lot of research, ask a lot of questions, and before we finalize anything, play a lot of devil's advocate while we're here. I think everyone sitting here knows how city government works. We've dealt with the city clerk's office many times, no one as many times as Mrs. Perry. And we're going to have to rely on her to really be our devil's advocate and be the one to say, it looks good here, but look, here's a possible conflict. And I think we're going to have to go through many iterations of an amendment before we reach the final goal. But I think everyone here is heading towards the same goal with the same purpose. Thank you.
So my trying to envision the language putting on the shelf 1 second the clerk of the council and just looking at the city clerk as a department head. I would ask the solicitor if for our next meeting if we could get some sort of information about the particular requirements that the clerk is required by state law to carry out, so that we could, because I don't feel that we could make a fully informed decision until we know that. I know, Ms. Perry, that you have the experience, but I just want to see the language for myself and have that, because I know just to see what, if we are to separate the duties, how exactly we can separate those duties. Like I know in Pawtucket, they have, I don't know how, if they can separate the duties, but I think they use kind of tricky language to put it a certain way, where they say there's a Department of Records, the head of which is the city clerk. City clerk is the ex officio, responsible for, all the records and minutes of, everything and everything. But then it also has all the other clerks. So I'm assuming that's how they try to get around that. So once we reach a consensus and move on, this would be more of a second stage discussion. But that's just something that I would ask the solicitor if we could get clarification on moving forward.
I'll try to turn it around in advance to get the materials to everyone. I'll basically, it'll just be a package of the general laws. I will try to do the same with the charter so that we can kind of have the bricks that we can work with and the bricks that we can't work with, and design accordingly.
Through the chair, as a point of conversation, you brought up example of Pawtucket, where it stated city clerk's duties and then the other clerks underneath. Now, is that city clerk acting as a department head, the other city clerks? In essence, is that what the design that we would be looking at in a way?
To my knowledge, that is how that works. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe that it is the city clerk themselves in Pawtucket that also, there is no clerk of the council in Pawtucket. I might be wrong.
I believe you're right. I think it's the deputy city clerk that does a lot of the work for council in Pawtucket. That might be how they work. But in here in East Providence, you've got, and they do call them the clerk of vital statistics, the clerk of deeds, the clerk of municipal court, the clerk of probate court. They're all the clerks, but the city clerk is the department head over all those other clerks. And like you said, ex officio over all those different department division.
Yeah, so it's just food for thought as we progress. Because again, we're not going to answer this tonight, but and it's good that we brought up Pawtucket, and we'll probably end up talking about language in Providence or Cranston or wherever, because, and not just with city clerk, when we talk about anything else in the charter, we're not, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we're not inventing anything new. We're just we're probably going to end up taking language that already exists and trying to reincorporate it to fit our charter, because we are a charter review commission, not a charter commission, which is separate under the state constitution.
Chairman, I give you credit to put that on the agenda, and I thought we had a good discussion, but I think Bruce made a lot of sense also, even though I think we're pretty much all in the same train. It's important also to have a direction from the council and a direction from the administration. I think it'll be better for all of us commissioners in making that decision when we go to the council, because I am sure we're talking about what the council knows exactly what they want to do. We stage it again. I think we all pretty close to the council. We all talk to the council. But I think it was a good discussion that we have today. I think we're pretty much all on the same train, realizing the fact that it's so important that position as city clerk today would be appointment by the mayor, because he or she is a department head. And second is, I think that's when the council comes in. Okay, will that fit the needs of the council? One city clerk by the mayor to do both? Or maybe on their mind, they're thinking about, we'll hire someone, part-time, whatever, to provide the service for the council. And that is, to attend the meetings, to post the meetings and all that stuff. So I think it was a good discussion. Therefore, I think we should wait for some input from the administration and the council.
Is there any more discussion?
Move to adjourn the meeting. Nothing else.
There is nothing else. There is a motion.
I'll second it. We got a light agenda.
It is a light agenda. Hopefully next time we'll have more to talk about once we get responses from those letters. So there's a motion by Mr. Faria. Oh, there was a second. Mr. Rogers. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.